Anastasia, we had a brief conversation prior to scheduling this podcast episode, and it got me excited to have you come on because you shared how you were married, you were living in another state, and then you had some kind of faith just fall into your lap, however you want to describe it when we talk, that'd be fine. And it just led you on this journey, this path to what you're doing today. And so I'm excited to have you share all that in more detail. So I'm not going to keep going on for me, you yeah, I'm not going to keep going on where I'm explaining your story when you should be saying it yourself, right? Um, so would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself now? What are you doing? And then I'd love to go backwards and just dive into how you got to where you are today.
Okay. I want to start, John, by acknowledging you because you're creating a platform where we're normalizing the miraculous. And I think that's super important, and that's critical to my story that I'm telling and to a lot of the stories that these people are coming on your podcast, because the future is going to depend on all of us normalizing the miraculous, following our guidance to its conclusion, and allowing these miracles to start transforming the world we live in. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Sure, thank you.
Um, I wanted to start by saying that this story is a little bit of a story of redemption. Um, I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was married. I had been married for 26 years with the same person for 31 years. We had two beautiful kids, and we had a okay marriage. Certainly towards the end, it was more meh than anything, but it was never bad. And he's a good guy, and we're very good friends today. However, I was not on purpose. And I have come to understand that each of us, and I know you feel this, John, we come in with a mission statement, each of us. And it's a powerful mission statement. And when we're aligned with our mission statement, the thing that our soul is coming here to do, then the miraculous starts to happen when we allow ourselves to fall into that groove, let's just say. And we can feel it. And each of us that are listening to this, you've had those moments where you're like, I feel aligned. This feels right. I feel called. Maybe it's as simple as I need to be in this place today. And sometimes it's bigger than that. So I had a pretty big vision come into my reality in around 2004, 2005, that I wanted to do a small farm called A Place of the Heart. I had two little kids, and I wanted to sell shares in it to all my friends so that we could have a place to go to and get away from the city and get back into nature and to feel ourselves and to help our children grow up around nature. And to that end, I segued out of a career in Feldenkrais, which is the physics of movement, and massage therapy, because I wasn't making a lot of money in either of those. And I went into real estate. And along the way, even though this was my vision to build this, I got very sucked into the capitalist ideal. And I kept my vision on my storyboard, so to speak, but I lost my way in many different ways. I became, this will sound funny because I know a lot of the people who come on this show are entrepreneurs, but I became a very successful entrepreneur. And it's not that I don't enjoy many aspects of real estate, but it wasn't my mission. And I got sucked into my management saying, how many sales can you do and how many contacts can you make? And I got very good at it, actually. So coming out of a more somatic-based, movement-based, body-based earlier career, I became quite good at contracts, negotiations, and drumming up business. And primarily, in hindsight, I realized that one of the ways that I became quite good at drumming up business is I was listening to my guidance. At the time, I didn't always know it, but I would get a sense of I need to be at this coffee shop at this hour, and I'd go there, and there would be the client. And this went on for many, many, many years in the San Francisco Bay Area. And each year we were encouraged by our management to come up with our mission and vision statement for the year and how we were going to execute in order to do however many sales, blah, blah, blah. And repeatedly I kept saying, well, the purpose of this, besides taking care of my kids, was to take care, was to build this farm out. And it wasn't quite coming together. I just kept getting more and more down the road of, we ended up with a bigger house. Now we had a bigger mortgage and I needed to make more money. And then the kids had needs. And then we were living in the suburbs and they would come home and say, I need what Susie has. And so what was expensive sneakers or, all the things, we all got sucked into it. All of us got sucked into the capitalist dream. And, but I kept feeling like there was something in the background that was noodling at me going, you're not on purpose. And so this went on for many years. In the meantime, it became evident that after many, many years together, my then husband and I were really drifting in different directions. We didn't share the same interests anymore. And there was a lot of pushback, I think, from society very subtly, like nothing's wrong. No one's drinking, no one's cheating. Well, of course you're going to stay together. But something was dying inside of me. And I think it was dying inside of him too. And I think it was because I wasn't on mission. And when I tried to steer towards that, he didn't want to come. That wasn't his mission. He had another place to go with his life. So fast forward to 2020, and I was sitting on my yoga mat. I'd been sent home for the first month of COVID with everybody else, which, by the way, I found ridiculously satisfying to finally sit quietly in my room and not run around and live out of my car and make phone calls at 10 o'clock at night. And I just heard like a whisper. It was like a whisper coming through, and it was just now. And it was like a full body chill, just now. And it had it had so much meaning with it that wasn't really in words. It was like, and now, you can't wait any longer. And of course, the next thing I did was ignore it and worked harder once they sent us back out in the field, because realtors were determined to be essential workers. Go figure that, John. But so I was working harder the next few months, and I felt this like thing building up inside me of like, you have got, and the message really became clear, go sit still. We need you to go sit still and we will change you and work on you. But we cannot do it at the pace you're working at and the way you're living your life. So, those few weeks of COVID where they made all the realtors stay home and we didn't have any work for the first time in 17 years, finally they could get through to me. They being my guidance, my guides, our angels, whatever you want to call it, that team that each person has coming in with them that's helping them resolve some of the conflict that maybe they brought from a past life, as well as help them express more and more of their soul. So finally that summer, as things got worse and worse, it started to shift in the Bay Area from not just COVID to, we had in August of 2020, we had over 1,500 lightning strikes in the San Francisco Bay Area. And now the skies were filled with smoke for the third year out of 4 years that I had been there. And it really felt like Armageddon. It felt like this is the beginning of the end. And actually, I feel like it was a huge wake-up call, because the way that we've been doing our lives, I think we can all agree that we're on a tipping point, that we've got to shift forward into a different kind of way of being, rather than, hey, I'm gonna work really hard, or I'm gonna work really smart, I'm gonna build my little empire, and I'm gonna acquire my second house at a lake and my third car, and put my kid through a fancy college, which, by the way, I think we're learning, colleges have their limitations as well. And so at that point, here I am in the Bay Area. I've got this powerful message pushing on me, and I'm getting pushback from the San Francisco Bay Area. You can't be here anymore. This isn't going to work for you. And I think one of the key points, because everything was collapsing in my field. My work was going really, really well, but it was getting very, very difficult to manage it. My marriage was flatlining, it was just on life support. And there was this one moment where I tried to give my then husband a 60th birthday party in the middle of COVID. And the only thing I could come up with was to have a film, I had all these clips of all these people, and we'd put together a montage, and it was going to be a surprise at someone's house who was willing to meet with us back, if you remember, the summer of 2020. Nobody wanted to get together. And so we had a big projection screen up, and we were going over there, and I was really excited we were going to finally do this thing. And as I went through each stop sign on the way over there, the power was being de-energized across the entire county. And so we would go through one light and the power would go off. We'd go through another light and the power would go off. And the next light and the power would go off. And at this point, I'm laughing inside. I'm like, everything I try is not working. And there's no clearer message. You don't belong here anymore. You don't belong in this marriage anymore. You have got to get out. And so finally, after that event, and by the way, the next day I took him up to Lake Tahoe, where he was going to get surprised by a few of his family. And we get up there and it catches fire, and within 12 hours, the place is filled with smoke. And I'm like, I give up. I have, kicking and screaming, I decide I better follow my guidance and actually do what's being told. So I decide I'll go to Bend, Oregon, and I inform my then husband, I'm going away for a couple of months. I'm leaving my job, and I just need to sit quietly. And as I'm making plans to go to Bend, Oregon, it catches on fire. Not the town itself, but the surrounding area, and it's filled with smoke. And for some reason, John, and to this day, I do not remember what inspired me to go to Taos, New Mexico, but something did. I have no idea. And I made plans and pivoted, and I went to Taos, New Mexico. And I showed up here with no intention of moving here, with no intention of leaving my career, and no intention of leaving my marriage. And after 6 weeks of sitting quietly out here, I did a lot of yoga. I listened to some of my favorite speakers, and I did a lot of meditation. It was very quiet, if you remember the fall of 2020, before we had, the next level vaccines, whether you believe in them or not. People weren't going out. This town was quiet. And I'm sitting in this 200-year-old adobe that I had rented for a few months, and my nervous system starts to calm down for the first time in decades. And I'm like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. And I can feel something is happening. My neurology is changing. My energetics are changing. I'm doing my yoga. I'm doing my breathing. And all I know is I come back and I say, I'm going to take a year off. I don't care what it takes. Kids are in college. I'm taking an entire year off. And that was the beginning where this lovely man who is my friend to this day said, I'm not on board. And so we chose to go our own ways at that point. We'd been together for 31 years, married for 26 years, and it became apparent we were really on different paths. And from that point forward, when I made that decision, very interesting things started happening. It was as if my team, whoever's working behind the scenes, had already primed all these different things that were going to happen. And they were just waiting for me. They were waiting for me to clear the decks and say, I'm willing to go for it. Clients of mine from the very first month that I had gone into real estate reached out to me, and I had said hello to them because they had relocated to Taos, New Mexico. And when I told them that I was separating from my husband, they said, "We think you should buy our farm." And I said, "You didn't hear me. I just said I'm separating. I'm not going to have any money, and I work in California." And they're like, "No, we think you're going to buy our farm." And this went on for a few months, where they would say this and I would say, "Well, why should I do that?" And about the third or fourth time, it stopped being, "Why should I do that?" And it became, "Why wouldn't I do that? This is what was my vision all along." And all of a sudden, I'm being given the opportunity to execute on it, 1,500 miles away from where I thought, in a completely different framework. But why was this being handed to me now? Well, one thing to roll back that I didn't cover is on my drive out for that first few months solo quiet time, I had a little talk with myself and I said, "You know that vision you've always had that you really wanted to do, this farm where you would invite people in, it would be a regenerative farm? That's over. Northern California is on fire. Southern Oregon is on fire. It's going to burn on and off for 50 years until we get a whole new ecosystem going there. And it's really nice to have visions, and it really propelled you through your real estate career. It motivated me for 17 years, and it's over." And so by the time I had come out here, I had put it to bed. I had said that thing is over. And so when they came back to me, it was as if I just had to let go of my idea of what this needed to look like in order to allow the universe to deliver to me the thing itself, which I want to stop right here and just say, we are so in our own way. I was dreaming so much smaller than what the universe was intending to give me. Not just smaller, but the beauty, the community, the interconnectedness. It was when I let it go of my idea of what this thing needed to look like that it actually came through. And when I said at the beginning, redemption, what I meant was I had kind of gone off into this whole other capitalist direction. And when this whole thing came back around and this farm was given, it wasn't given to me, I had to purchase it, but it really was reasonable given that I was coming from California to New Mexico. What I began to see that I had been off path for 17 years, perfectly off path. And the reason I want to bring that up is because a lot of people listening might feel like they're frustrated and they're off path, and they can kind of feel that they haven't done or they forgot about something. When I circled back around to the vision, and the vision was literally now stalking me, I realized that all the things I had done along the way where I was off mission, so to speak, was in service to it in the end. And it was just getting me ready for it. In so many different ways, I was prepped for it. And financially so, because as a massage therapist and a Feldenkrais practitioner, I wasn't ready. And I didn't understand contracts. And I didn't understand how to manage property, all of which I learned over the 17 years in my other career. So while it looked like I was off purpose, I was being trained for all the things I needed for my regenerative farm that we now have here in New Mexico called Harmony Taos Farm. So now in 2025, I've been here for 4 years. We have a 4-acre regenerative farm. We have 2 acres in carbon sequestration. I've taken 37 fruit trays that were being maintained through an organic method into regenerative method. And I can get more into detail if you want. And on my website, people can find out more about what is regenerative agriculture. And we're starting to open it up to allow people to come and regenerate themselves. Because what I have discovered is this place, once I got here, the first thing I had to do is I had to get regenerated. This was the place that is changing me. This is my own personal journey into unwinding, settling down, and letting my guides rework me neurologically, energetically, physiologically, mentally, and spiritually. Because I do firmly believe that that tipping point that we're heading toward, the decision making is going to be, are we willing to give up the way we've been operating in the world for a new paradigm? And the only way I can do that is to allow, is I got to stop, I just got to get out of my own way with my mind, with my beliefs, and especially with my vision, which is always smaller than what the universe has planned for me, and less exciting and less fulfilling and less joyful than what the universe has planned for me. Okay, now I'm gonna be quiet for a
That,
minute. Let's see if you have
no, you're
questions.
good. There's a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, you just like went through everything. Um, so I do have a few things. If you don't mind, we just go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, just a quick question about your relationship, your marriage and stuff. Do you feel like, let's just say in the beginning, were you on the same path and then things just changed along the way, or you never had that conversation in the beginning, maybe?
You know, I'm probably, I'm a little older than you, so I'm in my early 60s. And when we got together in the early 90s, there was still a strong paradigm out there that I just needed to get on. I needed to get with the program. And I don't think we had a really strong conversation other than where do we want to live? How many kids do we want? That really went into what's your purpose in life. And I also didn't feel like I could honor the my my visions and my dreams back then. I would say we're living in a time now where people understand a lot more that those visions and dreams are actually should be predominant and driving the conversation because they're coming from your higher self. They're coming from your guidance. So I was in denial of that
Mhm.
for a long time.
Yeah.
I had to work my way out of that.
Right. And so I'll agree, that for me too, personally, I don't think we ever had those deep conversations that we are learning now of, let's talk things out, get to know each other. Hey, this is how it is, and this is where I'm going. Are you going to follow me or not?
Right.
Right.
What's important to you?
Yeah,
Like,
what
really, what's paramount and important to you, and how can I support that? And if I can't, I need to get out of your way.
exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned, right? But you got to be supportive and behind them and carrying them along the way. Um, Yeah, and then you stated how you did a mission and vision for when you were a realtor for
Yeah.
real estate. Did you ever create one for yourself besides of seeing a vision, with this farm and everything once you got there, obviously, but did you ever create something on your own prior to that?
Vision boards.
Well, if you want to say vision board, but I mean, if you want to say go with that, that's fine. Or just something that you created to go, this is who I am, this is my mission, this is my vision, this is where I'm going. And you keep on just repeating that in your head or reading it or whatever to get to where you want to be.
I'm gonna say no, but yes.
Okay.
So no, in the sense of, again, in the era in which I was in my 20s and 30s and 40s, I don't think we had the tool set
Hmm.
in the same, I didn't have the tool set, I'll own that. However, I will say this, um, coming out of a really difficult, emotionally abusive childhood, I had some sort of understanding that I needed to undo a lot of the things that I had absorbed
Hmm.
about my own unworthiness and about the fact that I was to blame for everything. And so, and this is so, in hindsight, this is charming and amusing, but at 19 years old, I remember going down to, I was in the angst of teenage years and finishing my first year of college and just in that tumult of emotional stuff that starts to come up when you're a little bit far from home and you can feel how things, you're not right. And one of the things I did is I went down to the beach at UC Santa Barbara And I took 3 strands of red leather and I tied them into a braid and I tied them on my ankle. And this 19-year-old girl looks at the ocean and says on her birthday, I'm going to take the next year of my life and I'm going to undo everything that's ever been taught to me that is a false, I'm going to become my full and essential person in 1 year, which is ridiculously naive. 10 years later, careful what you tell the universe, because things started to really heat up after that. And it was as if like, yeah, you really want to undo all the baggage? Well, we'll bring it on. And they did. For about 10 years, it got really intense. And it wasn't 1 year, it was 10 years, because it was never going to be 1 year, because that was like, it's a lifetime, right?
Mhm.
And I
Right.
remember at 29 years old just saying, Uncle, I need to get off this train. And that was the year I met my then husband.
Yeah, it's and that kind of goes back to how you said you like we get in our own way. Um, so you kind of step aside sometimes and realize that like you mentioned before, the universe wants something so much greater and bigger than what you're thinking that you can handle. And I mean, look where you are today, right? And so I feel the same way too. Like and I believe a lot of people are just like holding themselves back. And ha I don't know, what was there like a strong feeling that you might have felt that, kind of just like, okay, I'm done. I know you said you just stepped back and you kind of let things go after a while and you just moved and you got the farm and things picked up. But was there any kind of feelings and stuff going on inside of you that you could say that you felt at that time?
With regards to, I mean, there was a lot going on.
Sure.
But John, are you pointing me in on one particular lens of like, what was I dealing with emotionally?
Yeah, yeah. You were still trying to guide yourself on this path of what you really didn't know what it was going to be,
Mhm.
right? And so how do you get out of that of not knowing, but then allowing to have it just become what it's supposed to be?
And we're talking about when the 2020, 2021.
Yeah, when you got to the farm and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Unless there's another time that you can think of.
Well, no, I think that was the pivot point for me. Everything that was the pivot point where I really made a big left turn. I was going
Hmm.
one way in my life, and you know, we could have stayed married and been okay, just okay, and life could have been just okay. Um, the pivot point really was I couldn't tolerate just okay anymore. There was something so powerful inside that was starting to move through me that was like, you got to get on mission, you got to get there. And when I finally listened, and then this farm came, it was like grease lightning how fast the farm came. And getting the loan for this property, which in my business, I work with mortgages a lot, and I'm very much aware it can take months sometimes, and there's a lot of 3 weeks, everything came together. It's unheard of. It just doesn't work that way. There were forces behind me that were setting this up. When I got here, the first thing I did for a good 12 months is I cried almost every day. I sat here mostly alone at that point and I cried. I cried. I didn't know why I was crying half the time, more than half the time. I did not know. I was going through something so by just saying yes, all I had to do was say yes. All this stuff inside me started to churn up and started to process out and clear the way. And that was about a year into this is when I realized too that I needed to start studying formally how to use the intuitive skills that we all have. I firmly believe we're running on intuition. A lot of the time we just don't know it because we're so front facing, that we're not aware how often we're relying on these other sensibilities, our clairvoyance, our clairaudience. Um, and so the first few years here were really about me going through a deep, it's not, hasn't stopped. I don't think it ever will stop, frankly, but it's, I had to go through this massive transformation, and it didn't start until I got here. I had to say yes to it and make the big pivot. And then I had to grieve, even though Jay and I split and we were mostly copacetic, there was a grieving period because something died,
Hmm.
something we had built, and certainly a family for our two beautiful daughters. And they were sad. And I had to
Yeah.
go through all of that. Yet at the same time, there was this feeling of rightness, and I think everyone in the family now can see that in hindsight, that my kids come out to the farm, they're in their 20s, and they absolutely love it, and they get to see their mom on point. And they
Hmm.
go and they hang with their dad, who's doing his thing, and he's doing his life beautifully. And so it makes sense to them in a way that I'm really grateful they get to see that, because I'm mirroring to them that opportunity in the future. Hey guys, you got to follow your vision.
Yeah.
It's scary. The scariest thing I ever did. I felt inside for years this need to make this change. I could not do it. I was petrified. And in hindsight, I can see that all those years I was waiting, things were being lined up. And I was learning a lot about how to manage a business, which I needed all those skills now. All I knew before was, the somatics of massage and Feldenkrais and movement. And now I'm much more grounded in the business world. But I had to step out. I had to go in it to get out of it, to be able to use it in a way that's going to serve humanity and serve this planet for what we're going through right now. And
Yeah.
it's an amazing feeling to not be a part of the problem anymore, to not be contracting, how can I help my clients make more money kind of thing,
Hmm.
and be more about how can I help you come to the farm and rediscover yourself and
I love it.
touch
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so needed nowadays, and everybody forgets that stuff. Um, I'm thinking of a lot of people when they're on their deathbed, they regret not doing X, right? And I would think, and I'm pretty sure you would agree, that if you were still on that path of marriage and doing whatever you were doing, and you would be there, that you probably would say, correct me if I'm wrong, that you would regret maybe making a move, even though you were scared. Um, and then that regret would carry on to your children and so on and so forth, right? So I I am beyond belief and excited to hear that you actually took that leap, right? And just see what happens. Even if the worst thing came out and nothing ever became like really great at the farm or whatever, you got to become the person you're supposed to be, right? And that's what's more important. And I'm at this stage too. Like I don't want to sit on my deathbed and regret anything. So I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, see where it takes me. I just don't want to quit. And that's exactly where you're at. So my next question would be like when people are coming out to your farm and they're touching grass and stuff, what kind of feedback are you getting from them? How is it making them feel? Are they, would you say disconnected or reconnected or connecting again in a sense?
It's the gamut.
Hmm.
I have people who camp here. I have people who stay for a month. I have people who stay for 6 months. I have people who do work trade. And there's something magical going on here. There's definitely a synergy with the divas, the plants, the trees. Um, we all feel it. When I first got here, I invited two new friends we walked the property, and I think we smudged and saged, and then we sat in a circle, and we closed our eyes and sat in a circle. And when we opened our eyes, there was a double rainbow over us. And that was sort of the beginning of me going, there's something going on here, and I don't quite understand it. And I hear repeatedly from people, how enchanting this land is, that it's touching them at a very, very deep level. And then there's some people who are just like, thanks for the free cherries.
Yeah.
Um, wow, I'm really having fun here. Bye. And I'm like, great, that's great. But there are people, and it tends to be people who are in a certain stage where they're like, usually their lives are falling apart and they're collapsing. And in that collapse, there's an opening. And in that opening, the magic of this place fills it. Um, it is a really enchanting property. And there's a lot of, yeah, I'd say people are deeply touched and maybe just cherry touched.
Cherry touched. So, how does somebody, find more information about your farm and visiting it?
So they can go to the website, www.harmonytaosfarm.com. They can find out more about me at bluestarintuition.com. Um, I'm absolutely terrible at social media. I'm terrible at marketing. I did get the website up and it is pretty cool, but I'd like to say you could go to Instagram because I have an account there, but unfortunately, I don't think I've posted there in like a year. Um, but those are the two best ways probably to
Okay.
find me. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and I'll put that in the show notes and stuff. So anybody listening or watching this, they can definitely reach out to you then.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would definitely consider, if whoever is watching or listening to this, to, check your website out and see if this is the place that they need to go to
Yeah.
find themselves and get grounded, if you want to call it that, right? Um,
Write that book.
right. That, yeah, right. And you
That
need that
book.
piece. Yeah.
Do that piece of healing work that's calling to you right now. Taos, New Mexico is enchanting and magical.
Yeah, I
And
remember you sent me some
um,
pictures of the landscape and everything, and which is really pretty. So, and that's on your website too, right? There's some pictures on there.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a whole gallery of photos. Yeah.
gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you. And then I have one question I ask every guest I have. So,
Yeah.
what are three key things you've learned and used along your journey?
Okay. Okay. Um, so the first one I'm going to talk about is the universe plans for you are going to be way bigger, more fulfilling, and more dynamic than anything that you can imagine. So any way that whenever you're thinking and you're making plans, it's fine to make plans, but leave some psychic space to kind of pull back and not know. Because in your not knowing, the universe is going to rush in and deliver to you something more magical, more magnificent, beyond what you can humanly imagine. That'd be number one. Number two, focus is good, flexible is better,
Hmm,
but you're
it's a
going to
good
need
one.
both.
Yeah, I
But
like that.
flexibility has been sort of a hallmark for me. I need the strength to pivot. But focus is good, flexible is better. And then the last one is something that I was taught by my guides that I wanted to share. And that is that we all have negative voices that can be incredibly subtle. That we think they're not talking. We can sometimes loudly hear them, but sometimes they're just subtly niggling at us. And I've learned that I can't overcome the negative voices. However, I can witness them. And when I witness them, I unblend from them. And when I unblend from them, I can bless them. And when I bless them, they're free to they're free to evolve, change, and resolve back into the energy they come from. So it's in my ability to witness when I'm chattering away negatively, subtly or not subtly. It's when I'm witnessing them that I'm unblending from them. And when I'm unblending from them, I'm allowing them to go back into the source from which they came from. And that it, because all those negative voices are energy. And the only way they actually work is when I feed them.
Can you give a quick example of that? Let's just say one
Yeah.
negative thing that you had, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. So if that one comes up for me, that's a chronic one. So then I sit there and I just almost physically, I'll sit back and I'll go, I am not good enough. I have been energizing. I'm not good enough. I choose to unblend from I'm not good enough. And in the unblending, I am not good enough is now free to evolve, change, and resolve back into the unified field from which it came, harmonizing with divine mind, right use of will, and the infinite intelligence of love. So what I'm doing is I'm creating some spaciousness between me and instead of energizing it and giving it power. I'm
Mm.
not sure if that makes sense.
It does. And so would you say that takes time, like you have to do it several times for one of them?
You can,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when I first got this download, I was out of the country in the jungle in 2023, and this piece of guidance came to me. And when I got back, I was get up at 4:30 in the morning for like 30 days, and I would do 1 to 4 hours of this. It was really, really intense. You don't need to. I'm just saying I needed to at that time
Mm.
for some reprogramming. I was literally reprogramming some thought forms. And it was in that, the key word is I'm unblending from the thought. You aren't the thought. You've been energizing the thought. Because we're so powerful. We're energizing our own smallness. That's how
Yeah,
powerful we are. We create our own smallness.
you're right. I like that. I like how you said that. Yeah. And you got I got like a lot of little quotes going on here, whatever you created for this whole episode. Um, Anastasia, I appreciate you ta sharing everything even up to that last minute there. You know, all of it was really great. Your journey is incredible. I'm glad you shared everything you could, and you know, I hope your farm just keeps on exceeding expectations beyond what you're thinking that it can only go. So I appreciate you being a guest.
Well, I appreciate you, John, and I really appreciate your show and all the people you're bringing on so that we're reinforcing each other's ability to live the miraculous.
Thank you.
Thank you.